Okay, Blair's back and he's gone mad. Is he possessed? Is he infected? Or is he just what he always was, a kind of technocrat, a pragmatist? Okay, so what's the background? Well, the background is that Blair's written this kind of manifesto to save the UK. He says the UK is doing it all wrong. Labour, particularly, who happen to be in party in government at the moment, are all over the place. They don't understand the world, that everything's changing. And then they've got to wake up and they've got to kind of change. And he kind of lists the whole reasons why they should change and what they should change into. But the interesting thing is, of course, Tony Blair has undergone a total, revolution in thinking. I mean, here was a guy who was leader of the Labour Party for 13 years and can't stop telling you that he is the only Labour Party leader who has won 3 terms. So he's been in the wilderness for about 20 years. When I say the wilderness, I mean that he's been in charge of the Blair Institute, an organisation funded by anybody who'll give him money, generally tech oligarchs and people in the Middle East, for him to think about policy in their respective countries. But so what's happened? You all want to know, I'm sure. What's happened to Tony Blair? There he is, 1 minute, rubbing shoulders with Gordon Brown, full of all of these principles and values, left-leaning, and that was his job, to be leader of the Labour Party, which is a party of the left. And now he's come back and he's written a manifesto which could have been written by, not even Kemi Badenoch would go as far as he's gone. So, I mean, it's a Nigel Farage, it's Elon Musk, it's tech oligarchs, it's MAGA. He's come back from the wilderness of the Blair Institute with the advice that we should become a kind of party of, well, I would say a party of the extreme right, but he would say a party of reality. Well, many of you might agree with that. And if that's what he thinks, that's what he thinks. It's no big deal. Except for the fact that this chameleon change, this change from black to white or white to black, from extreme left to extreme right, seems to have happened under our noses. And why? So if we quickly go through his boring old manifesto, which doesn't really say very much, actually. I mean, it's kind of, there's nothing particularly astounding about it, except for the fact that he has, he's become a Tory or a Reform Party member or a MAGA member. And he's done it without any shame whatsoever. And I want to talk about why he's done that and what's happening. So he's reversed on climate policy. He says, forget about climate policy, forget about net zero, and, let's start burning gas and oil and come on, get real, guys. It ain't going to change anything. Well, that may be the case, that may not be the case, but the point is he's completely changed his tune and he's fallen into line with the populists. This is exactly what populism is about. It's about short-termism. It's about a kind of an immediate gain from plundering any resources you can get, not really planning for tomorrow, and that's what he's doing. He's anti-welfare all of a sudden. There's too many. The welfare state is too kind of bureaucratic, and it's ballooning. Well, that may well be the case. He doesn't have any solutions for that. He just sort of says that there are too many people off work, he says, for the reasons of mental illness. Well, maybe there are, maybe there aren't. I don't actually know. I don't know whether people feign mental illness to get off work. I'm not sure. But he didn't offer any solutions for that. But it was the Norman Tebbit thing. Does anybody remember Norman Tebbit? Particularly unpleasant man. It was like, people should get on their bikes and look for work. Interestingly, he does say that nobody will have any jobs because of AI. So I'm not quite sure whether it all kind of balances out in his little equation, but there you go. So doesn't give a damn about the climate, anti-welfare, sort of kind of reform style. And he's into deregulation now, which is quite interesting. He's into entrepreneurship and business. Nothing wrong with that, accept everything he says completely, either kind of negates the needs of the modern working person. Regulation exists often to protect the worker and protect the consumer. But he wants to get rid of all that. So what he is doing is promoting the idea of generally, the wealthy property owners, the capitalist, and that kind of thing. Well, fair enough. This is what Nigel Farage would love. This is what Trump and his cronies want. This is what the tech oligarchs want. This is what Kemi Badenoch wants. Fine, you can all go down that route. This is what the tech accelerationists want. That's fine, but what I'm interested in is how he has managed to achieve this sudden ideological change without kind of any shame whatsoever. That's what I'm interested in. So he wants to stop this idea that European Union countries, EU countries of Britain are kind of these social democrats, that they are following the principles of, what was the name of the Japanese author? I should know this, but he wrote the book called The End of History, which was the idea that we have a kind of balanced system of not quite unregulated capitalism, but we have a kind of fair system of free market, that kind of thing. Fukuyama, his name was, I think. So he says, forget about all that nonsense. He says, the world is a tough, crazy place and it's changing very, very dramatically and we've got to get serious. Okay, well, I don't know, maybe we have, maybe we haven't. But he's got to... But he is very in favour of privatisation now. He wants to privatise everything. He says it's the only way to... But these arguments have been running for 50 years about privatisation, the idea that government can't run business or health service or, even a benefits office or a prison, and that you need to get in a kind of private specialist. Private specialist means private consultants. But who are not specialists. They just try and keep one page ahead of everybody else. But anyway, there you go. He's into privatisation. He mentions immigration because he has to, of course, but he actually doesn't treat it like a very hot potato. He sort of gets it in his manifesto and he chucks it away very quickly. He doesn't want to hold the hot potato. And I think that's kind of typical of the whole thing, which is that he kind of points out one or two things, but doesn't really offer any solutions whatsoever. So he says we must take immigration seriously, and basically that's it. Okay, he doesn't want to touch that. One of his main points, okay, and he's kind of really weird about this, in my opinion, is that he is kind of endlessly going on and generally convinced that the revolution that's happening now with AI, or the tech revolution, is going to be so profound that we will not recognise the world in 10 years' time. Now, there's probably a reason for that, isn't there, which we'll come to. But he's obsessed with AI, obsessed with tech, and basically wants to turn the UK into a technocracy, a country which is defined by experts in technology. And, I suppose you could think of it as like kind of pragmatism plus. This is very popular now amongst people like Tony Blair, who have decided that they need to say something about the old politics not working anymore because they can't cope with Trump, they can't cope with populism, and they kind of say, well, we've got to accept the world as it is now. Basically ditch principles in favour of a kind of, this is the real world, it's ugly and horrible, and we've got to be ugly and horrible. Now, over to you. I mean, really, what you think is up to you. But, it's all to do with a kind of post-ideological technocracy. So the old battles of left and right and this and that, forget about it. The world is in chaos. The world is dangerous. The world is changing, like not just changing slowly, but profoundly and quickly. And unless we do something, and I've just gone through the list of things we need to do, then we will not survive. So why has he changed his mind? Well, I would say that, has he ditched his principles completely and his values? Reading the manifesto, it seems that he has, actually. That he's kind of given up. And he's not the only one, actually, who has done this. The president of Finland, Alexander Stubbs, recently wrote a book that was almost identical to the Blair manifesto. And they're all coming from the same area. And they call it values-based realism. Now, forget about the values-based thing. That's bullshit. Just think of the realism. They want to get realistic. The world is in crisis. Trump rules. China is on the rise. We are a kind of broken, weak, old-fashioned state. We've got to get real. Okay, and what that really means is ditching everything that we believe is good about the country. What's up? We're going now. Hang on, Bunny. And that really means... Bunny, come here. And that really means sort of ditching the principles and values that really make our nation what it was. And he's saying, well, I'm afraid that there's no choice. We've got to do this. And it's a very strange kind of... It's a very strange kind of belief, in a way. You know, to me, it's cowardice to some extent to say, you know, MAGA is a real thing, America is changing, China is changing, the world is changing, and therefore we must ditch everything we believe in and we must change, we must assimilate to this real world. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do that, but, you know, to me, it's kind of suspicious. And in the case of Blair, I think that without doubt, he has been possessed. He's been possessed, or should we say infected. He's been infected by the virus of the tech accelerationists. Those who believe, and when I say that, I mean the tech oligarchs who have been selling tech as a kind of new god, as something that's going to save us all, as something that is ubiquitous and all-powerful, and that we have absolutely no say in how it is manifested in this world, that they have created this beautiful monster, and that now it's growing of its own accord, naturally, organically, and it's going to suffocate us all. So we better learn how to breathe its gases. And Tony Blair, who hangs out with these tech oligarchs, who is paid by these tech oligarchs, who hangs around with them, okay, he's been completely and utterly infected by them. And he really believes all of this crap. He has dropped his principles because he now sees the world through different eyes completely.